I'm going to show you guys how to do shadows in perspective. Uh, to start with, you want to establish your light source. From there, draw a line down from the light source down to the horizon line. Where it intersects is called the shadow vanishing point. This represents the light source being pretty far away in the distance in the back. To start with, we shall start with thinking about the cube. When thinking about the cube, I like to think of it as the top and the bottom surfaces. I've drawn them in green and red here to represent the two different surfaces. Draw shadow perspective lines from the shadow vanishing point to the three corners on the bottom surface, right? So I've drawn them in red, so you can tell these are the ones that's on the bottom surface. Next, draw three lines that intersects the top surface. I've drawn these in green. Where they intersect with the red lines, that's where the edges of your shadows will be. So now you've actually created three triangles that's sticking out from your cube. So now I'm going to draw the shadow using these intersect points and the red lines on the ground. The red lines represent the shadow lines that's on the floor surface. So you use the red lines instead of the green ones. So now I'm gonna turn off the colored lines and the colors, and you see this is the shadow being cast on the cube from this light source. Moving on from the cube, I'm gonna touch on the cylinder. For cylinders, the technique or the approach is almost exactly the same as the cube. Again, I'm going to represent that the top green surface and the red bottom surface. Okay. Similarly, I'm going to draw the red lines to intersect the edges, the extreme edges of the bottom of the cylinder. The next bit is the only exception with the cylinder compared to the cube. Look for the furthest edge of that curve, and draw a line with that edge. It's probably not going to be right in the middle, so it's going to be somewhere over there. And draw a line outwards to the top of the cylinder. So now we will proceed on to the green lines that's going to intersect the top surface. Again, it'll intersect the edges, the extreme outer edge of the cylinder. And for that last one, where the upright red line intersects with the top. So you get that three triangles this time around your cylinder. Of course, this being a cylinder, so instead of having a squarish shadow, it's going to have a curved top on the shadow. So draw a curve around the top and use the red lines to show the sides of that cylinder shadow. Okay, turning off the the colored lines and the colored surfaces. I'm gonna just tweak that a little bit. Yeah, so there you have it, the shadow for the cylinder. The next thing I'm going to show you is with the cone. The cone is probably the easiest of the shapes to draw a perspective shadow with. The important thing is to find the center of the base of the cone, so the center of the circle, the circular part of the cone. So draw a red line to intersect that center of the circle, and next draw a green line to intersect the top tip of the cone. So now you've established the furthest point on the shadow, the tip of the shadow. So uh, the next thing is just simply to join up that tip to the edges, the extreme furthest edges of the cone. Yep. So that's the cone. Really, the most simple of all the four. Lastly, we're gonna look at the sphere. I've been thinking quite a bit about how to draw the shadow of the sphere without having to construct a bounding box, in a 2 point perspective. There isn't a perfect way, so I've come up with this a relatively simple way of kind of imagining the sphere as a flat disk. I've actually drawn some guidelines linking the sides of the sphere to the bottom, and from there you can use the same technique that you've done with the cylinder and the cube by joining the red lines to that bottom edge, the imaginary bottom edge, and of course the center of the circle of the sphere where it touches the ground. Um, for the green lines, two of the green lines, which is the side ones, will be going through the side of the sphere, the halfway point of the circle, and the last one will go through and touch the tip of the circle. So this gives you, when you come to drawing the shadow, the two sides and the top of that curve, and of course the bottom, which will be touching uh, your sphere itself. Like I mentioned, this is probably not the ideal or actual proper method of doing this, but I think it gives you an approximation of the shadow uh, and its position without too much work. So I'm just gonna clean up the curves a little bit, and well, because the if you're trying to represent a sphere, the shadow will actually begin or start not at the edge of the tip but before it. So you might want to shift or draw your shadow to intersect the sphere a little bit more.